Hi, I'm Hannah Mikell, Agronomy Agent for Clemson Extension. Today I have the pleasure of being at Sandhill Research and Education Center with Dr. Cory Heaton. Cory, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to work together now for 13, 14 years, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah. And in that time, you have done extensive research on deer depredation and all sorts of things. But today, we have the opportunity to see some of that firsthand.
Right.
Tell us about where we're at now.
So today we're looking at, right now, some fences that we put in for the South Carolina Soybean Board. Okay. And they were interested in ways to stop deer damage in some of their fields. And so we developed a few different designs that are, common out there, and we're just testing them to see which ones work. And as you can see, this one doesn't work very well.
Now let's take a look at these, because these are some astronomically short beans. Typically they'd be squatting down at this level. They'd be right at head high, right? Right,
yeah, and we'll see that in some other fields. One of the big problems we have when deer are browsing beans is they continue to browse them. And so the soybean plants put on their node spacing really close together.
Right.
So each one of these bracts should be, further apart, 6, 8, 10 inches apart. And here you see they're not even an inch apart. So it makes it really difficult, even if you were able to make beans, to get them in the harvester.
Right.
We'd want to start harvesting beans somewhere around in here, and these plants would never see that.
And this is happening because the deer have continued to browse. As the plant's grown, they've just clipped all the leaves off. Right,
yeah, and some fields we see where they browse it early and then they go somewhere else and feed, and you get a semi-normal looking plant. But when they continue to browse, you get these very compact plants that are really difficult to harvest if you did make a crop.
Yeah, and as you all well know, I mean, you have to have leaves in order to give the plant enough energy to actually reproduce. And what we're seeing here are these little bitty tiny pods where our soybeans should be 3 and 4 pods in some cases, but I don't see hardly any on any of these plants out here. So the yield would be basically 0, right?
Yeah, the yield on this field's 0. It's 0, and that's not every field in South Carolina gets hit this hard, but a lot of them do.
Yeah, I get calls.
And a lot of pieces of fields get this hard. So like maybe the whole field isn't damaged, but 10%, 20% of it is damaged at this level.
Yeah, no, I've had phone calls where we've had a 40-acre field, they've planted twice, and both times they've cleared the whole field.
Absolutely.
Where there's nothing out there.
Yeah, and then we have a handful of fields that get no damage. Yeah. So it's kind of all over the board.
It's relative depending on their hunting styles and what they're doing as far as deer management too.
Absolutely.
So Cory, behind us are some nice growthy looking beans. Let's go take a look at those.
All right.
Okay, Cory, we made it from the split wire fence to this slanted fence. We were able to make it through something the deer haven't obviously been able to do.
Right.
Tell us about these beans and why they look so good.
Right. So both of the fences that we've been in are designed to work off a deer's depth perception.
Oh.
Right. And so it's making that deer think he can't cross it. They're perfectly capable of crossing either one of these fences.
These are about what, 5 foot, 6 foot tall?
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. But the first year, the fence we were in with all the damage looked just like this. But in year 2, you see what happened.
They figured it out.
Right. And so when we come over to this fence, it's been effective 2 years in a row. So this is a much better solution for a permanent fence.
Okay.
The fence we were in earlier would be a good fence for a temporary fence.
You're
like
right.
for guys doing dove fields or duck impoundments or wildlife food plots. It would be a good option for that, where you're going to take it down at the end of the year.
Right.
Perfect
Not just
fence.
for soybeans, maybe sunflowers or various other crops.
Right. So a lot of options there.
Right.
But for a permanent fence to keep deer out of an area, this slanted fence works extremely well.
Yeah.
And these beans were planted the same day as the fence we were just in. Same seed, same fertility, same insect control, everything's identical.
Yeah.
Except for deer aren't in this fence. We pulled the leaves off just to show you how these things are spaced.
Yeah.
But on the plants in the other field, this is the top of that plant.
Yeah.
And so in here where we've stopped deer damage, this is where we start to set pods. And then it goes up in a way that the harvester can actually get to.
Yeah.
And it spreads them out.
Yeah, that header will come through and pick up that bottom
Right.
node with that bean that started to set fruit. And that's excellent. So for those that are wanting to hunt, obviously they do need some type of stand to let the deer feed on it.
Sure.
How do they go about doing that?
So I work with a lot of guys that are doing just that. I work with farmers trying to stop deer damage, but I work with a lot of guys who are trying to grow deer. And what we do is fence out some of these areas, just like what you see here.
Right.
to allow some volume to get in there. You know, if they continue to eat that plant and never let it get taller than this,
yeah, there's nothing.
There's not a lot of volume to that feed, but here you have tonnage.
Yeah.
And tonnage feeds deer.
Yeah. So if we're planting in a row crop situation, like the growers I work with, we're in like late April, May, June-ish, for depending on what variety they're planting, what group they are of soybean. But for a food plot type situation, they're planting.
It's all over the board, Hannah. I have guys that are doing the same thing as us. They're coming out in May with a group 4.
Okay.
And then I have guys that are planting in July, and you know, I'm telling those guys to go with a late 6 or early 7 variety.
Right.
And it works. It works. You just got to make sure you get the right variety for the time that you're planting.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So the fencing costs, tell me where we are with that.
Yeah, so on this fence, you're looking at about $1.25 a linear foot. And I've talked to some growers that put these in, and my question is, how many seasons is it going to take to pay for that fence?
Yeah.
And so far, it looks like one growing season more than pays for it.
That's excellent, but they're probably going to want to put that on land that they own, not land that they're renting.
You know, if you work out that lease agreement on that rental, where you can do 10 years or 12 years or 15, ever how you do that, possibly, but you're right, more so on owned land than rented land. The other things too is you judge that based on the level of deer damage. You know, on one of these high damage fields, this fence pays for itself in a year.
Right.
So you could justify putting it on a 1 year rental, you know, if you had to.
Right. Really trusting the person who owns the field. If sometimes I get phone calls from people that are out of town that own family land still, they no longer utilize it, but they rent it. If there's a communication there between the person renting it and the owner of deer depredation of sorts, they might not even have to do this fencing scenario, right?
Right, yeah, we have other options.
Right.
You know, we have a lot of work going on looking at deer repellents.
Oh, tell me about all that.
And I can show you plots where, you know, right here on this farm where we're using deer repellents and getting the exact same results this fence gave us.
Right.
You know, the farmer's going to have to make multiple trips across the field, and that's not cheap. You know, every time we run across it. But they could take mix
with like an insecticide or something like that, right?
Yeah, most of these products blend well with insecticides, with your herbicides. They fit into our normal program.
Right.
But it might require an extra trip or 2.
And cost.
And cost.
Yeah, so you kind of have to weigh one or the other. If you're going to take 2 trips across the field to save or salvage a field with deer damage in it, where does that equate to a fencing cost possibly?
Yeah, and you know, that's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah,
you know?
You can't make those decisions for them.
No, you can't make those decisions for them, but you can give them the options, and those are the options we have.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good options. Most of the ones that I've seen to be the most effective were soap-based, like an insecticidal soap product. We've had really good luck out of several of those. Essential oils have become really common in deer repellents. So
it would take a boatload of essential oils.
Yeah, it's a lot of plant-based oils, garlic oils, peppermint oils,
really?
Clove oils, you know, all these different plant oils. Pretty effective. And then we have other things like there's a product on the market now that's emulsified sheep fat.
What?
And it works phenomenally.
Cory,
and then there's
come on.
Dehydrated blood products that work really well, you know.
Like blood meal from?
Like blood meal kind of, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have a lot of different options there. Some are more effective than others. One of the things we've studied this year is how do they perform under the same conditions. So like if you put these different products out on the same day and they experience the same weather, like the oil products don't perform as well when we're 90+ degrees when we put them out. They just kind of volatilize and go away. The soap products work really great in hot weather, but they don't work really great when we have rainy weather.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of a balancing act of which product to use when.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some growers end up kind of disillusioned by the fact that, oh, I put it out, you know, when they came up to protect them.
Right.
But now the soybeans are up like, you know, a foot tall, and now I'm seeing an astronomical amount of deer damage in the middle of the day.
Yes.
So it's not a one shot stops all the deer, right?
No, I've tested literally every product that's on the market. None of them are single application products. You're going to have to go. I think it's really important right when we come out of the ground, when we got uniform emergence, we need to spray. Because if they get hit during that cotyledon stage, you're going to lose a lot of plants, right? And then after that, it's going to be case by case. Like sometimes they'll last 2 weeks. Sometimes they'll last 2 months. You just got to watch that crop and seed. But as soon as you see damage in the field again, go spray again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the fencing, the growth habits of the soybeans, both for, you know, people who are growing them for profit and not. But we haven't touched on the fact of how do you measure the deer density? I know we can count tracks.
Sure.
But what else is beneficial?
So there's basically 2 methods that people use. You can do it with trail camera surveys, and you can do it with spotlight surveys.
Oh, like the old-timey.
Yeah, old-timey. That's the way I still do it. I like spotlight surveys. You just develop a route, estimate the distance that you're looking at, and count the deer. And it works really well. Spotlight surveys, anybody can do. You know, trail camera surveys work really well, but you're going to spend a lot of time looking at those cameras and trying to identify deer to actually determine how many you have. There's a ton of information online on how to do those.
But at the end of the day, there was a study done, how many, 4 or 5 years ago now maybe, about deer pressure and what the loss was just in soybeans.
Sure, yeah. So we worked on that for like 4 or 5 years now. And we were estimating how much deer are costing us in soybeans. And it's a lot more than you would think, but roughly 25% of our soybean yield across the whole state is leaving with deer.
What does that equate to in dollars?
Around $50 million every year.
50 million?
Yeah, walking off with deer, somewhere in that. I mean, that's extrapolated from, you know, the fields in the study, but that's the best estimate we have.
You know, thank you so much for all that you've given to our growers, all the knowledge that you just possess individually. I know you're always available when I give you a call, and I certainly appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I think we need to really thank the people that funded all this research and that are trying to find these answers for our farmers. So
yeah.
South Carolina Cotton Board, South Carolina Soybean Board, South Carolina Peanut Board, all the commodity boards have been, you know, they're fully in it. And they've worked with us every way they could to start answering some of these problems with deer.
Yeah. Well, you know, the farmers make up all those boards, and it's important to them, it's important to us, and we want to be there for them to make sure we're getting all their questions answered.
All their questions answered, and we're trying.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying, and we're getting good information. I mean, this is the difference between a farmer being in business and not being in business.
That's right, yeah. We just need some of those commodity prices to go up, right?
Yes.
Thank you again, Cory, so much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming.